Michael Goodwin, thanks for joining us again. Of course, we're waiting on the impeachment vote in the Congress, in the House of Representatives. There's no surprises there, are there? This thing will just go through. There'll be an impeachment vote.
Yes, and they have Nancy Pelosi has the votes for the Democrats to pass. She has a majority. So there's not a lot of tension about this. The outcome is spoken for.
Yeah, I think this letter that Donald Trump has sent to Nancy Pelosi, to the House Democrats effectively, is absolutely scintillating. I want to read a couple of excerpts to you and get your comments. Right at the start of the letter, President Trump says, by proceeding with your invalid impeachment, you are violating your oaths of office, you are breaking your allegiance to the Constitution, and you are declaring open war on American democracy. That's a pretty powerful assessment of what the impeachment is all about.
Well, and he has zeroed in, I think, on the liabilities of it, which is that it is there's nothing in the Constitution that really supports what they're doing. It is a very feeble set of charges. And I think the president is right to say that they are the ones who are abusing their power, even though that's one of the charges they file against him.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And the thing that gives him so much power in that argument is that they've been trying to impeach him since virtually before he was even inaugurated. And, of course, he goes to that. He goes to their previous efforts in the letter. He says, before the impeachment hoax, it was the Russian witch hunt. Against all evidence and regardless of the truth, you and your deputies claim that my campaign colluded with the Russians. A grave, malicious and slanderous lie, a falsehood like no other. He went on to say that this was a wholly fabricated story. And, of course, that whole Russian collusion thing was supposed to be the basis of their first impeachment, or their hoped first impeachment. It fell apart, of course, when the inquiries into it found that there was no collusion.
You know, Chris, it's very hard to, I think, calculate or even to appreciate from this moment now to understand what great damage that did to the American government system for the first 3 years of the Trump presidency. It was this giant cloud. Everybody and everything was suspect. You didn't know how it was going to end. And, you know, the claims from Adam Schiff and others that they had the evidence. The evidence was there. It was only a matter of time. I mean, this did great damage, I think, to President Trump's administration. I think it did great damage to the faith in the presidency, and certainly for him personally. I think it was a torment, and that's what it was designed to do, was to drive him from office, whether or not the evidence surfaced. And as we know now, there was no evidence to fairly accuse him of that, so it really was a false and bogus charge all along.
And, of course, as you say, it came to nothing. And then they switched to the whole Ukrainian issue. And this Ukrainian issue is the one they now take to the House and will pass this impeachment vote, as you say. And this is where I think Donald Trump in his letter makes the most powerful point, not so much to the Democrats, but to the American voting public, because he says, perhaps most insulting of all is your false display of solemnity. You apparently have so little respect for the American people that you expect them to believe that you are approaching impeachment somberly, reservedly and reluctantly. No intelligent person believes what you are saying. I mean, he has a big point there, a powerful point, that this underestimates the intelligence of the American voters.
Yeah, it's been a very cheap act. You can see right through it. I mean, I've written myself a couple of times that, you know, you sort of expect them to break out into a dance and do a high five. But instead, they put on this sad sack face to try to convince in front of the cameras that, oh, you know, it's just our duty. We take no pleasure in this. I think the president is right. Secretly, they're rejoicing in this. This is what they've wanted to do all along. They were simply looking for an excuse. And when Russia didn't give it to them, then along came Ukraine, which is, I believe, is a piffle. And they've seized on that as though it's enough. it is not enough. And if this becomes the new norm, that you, on a partisan line, vote only, this has never happened before in American history where only one party was supporting impeachment. This is a whole new era we've entered into here, and it's not a happy era by any stretch.
And of course, you're about to go into an election year, and I just wonder what comfort President Trump and his supporters might take from the UK election result. Of course, entirely different issues, but here was Boris Johnson really asking voters, mainstream voters in the UK, to support him against the media political establishment, against all those trying to block Brexit. And that's a similar argument, if you like, a similar dynamic, at least, when it comes to Donald Trump. He's still saying that he's fighting against the political and media establishment in the US, as exemplified by the whole impeachment push.
Absolutely. And, you know, Chris, I recall when Barack Obama went to London and basically said to Brits that you will be at the back of the queue for any American trade agreement if you leave the EU. The back of the queue was Obama's warning, don't vote for Brexit. And, of course, people did anyway, and they've done it again. So I think that Donald Trump is on the right side of that argument. He's encouraged them. He's promised them, you know, good trade agreements. So I think on that idea alone, he and Boris Johnson are really very close to sort of two peas in a pod.
Michael, it's been great to get your insights this year. I really appreciate it, as do our viewers. I hope you have a happy Christmas and are fired up for what's going to be a fascinating new election year.
Indeed it will. Thank you, Chris. I've enjoyed it also, and a happy Christmas to you.